is I also always remind folks that, like, when we're talking about white supremacy culture in particular, it's not just white people that struggle with it, right? I think that's also like a misconception that like only white people like can play out the characteristics of white supremacy culture, or only managers can, or only leaders can. And like, no, like I really struggle with like a lot of white supremacy culture like characteristics, because we're all socialized and all normalized in that framework, especially in professional settings, right? And I have this theory that like in some instances, people of color are more susceptible to it. And the reason why I say that, and I know it's like a hot take, is because like, think about it. If you're a young professional of color or a young professional from a marginalized group and you're just coming up the ranks, you're just starting your career, right? Like oftentimes you do not have leaders that look like you to emulate, right? Oftentimes you don't have people who are your manager or in senior leadership to say, oh yeah, this person looks like me, they come from my background, they come from my identity, so I want to model my leadership style and model my career after them. You don't have that a lot of times. And if you do, a lot of the ways that people of color and marginalized people get into those positions, unfortunately, is by emulating a lot of that same behavior, right? It's like emulating perfectionism, emulating having that sense of urgency and having to go all the time. So like, it's not just white people who struggle with white supremacy culture. And I think that's also like really important to name, right? Like I know myself particularly, I am like the world's biggest perfectionist, and like it literally like halts my work sometimes because I just cannot get out of my own head. And I'm like, oh, if this isn't perfect, like then I'm gonna fail, or my client's gonna fire me, or like, which is totally irrational, obviously. Like that's the other thing, right? It's totally irrational.
Yes.
But so I think that's also just like really critical to name that.
Yeah.